Hey everyone, today I'm visiting my old friend Dayne Lin, who is one of my biggest influences of getting into reef aquarium hobby. He's got a 400 gallon aquarium, and I remember that when I had my first 10 or 20 gallon aquarium, seeing this in real life was an eye-opening experience. So today Dayne was kind enough to invite me to his house, and we're gonna do a quick overview of his setup, go into a little bit of history, and then you'll get to see the basement setup with amazing frag section and probably the biggest calcium reactor I've ever seen. And we'll get to ask Dayne about his husbandry, his history, his principles into aquarium keeping. And I can say I'm really excited about this episode. So without further ado, let's get going. Dayne, why don't you tell us about this aquarium? How old is it? How big it is? And how did you come about to setting something like this up?
Well, basically the tank is 30 inches tall by 40 inches wide by 6 feet. This was my dream size because I didn't want it bigger than that. When we bought the house, I envisioned where I was going to put the tank.
Right.
And as you can see, the tank fits peninsula style quite well in the layout of the house.
So what we see here is the shortest and smallest view of the whole tank, right?
Right.
Nice.
So this is walking in from the front door. This is what you see looking 6 feet down in the tank. The tank volume is actually 374 gallons. It is lit by 6 Radeon G4 Pros and 4 80-watt T5s. Circulation with 2 MP60s, closed loop with M1 circulation pumps on the closed loop. There's 3 of them under here.
Wow.
Right.
So everything is modular, right?
Everything is modular. If you step back a little bit, the lights are up here. I have 4 sea swirls on the tank also, which gives random flow.
Yeah.
And I have an Abyss 400, or it's a 420 I believe, which pumps the water up from the basement through these 2 sea swirls. The other ones are just on a closed loop. So it comes out through these ones, gives nice random flow across the tank, then overflows at the back of the tank. And that's the basic of it. As you can see, it's a mixed reef. I love my SPS, but I also like some movement, a lot of zoas and LPS on the bottom. I have 9 tangs in this tank, and they all seem to get along pretty well. I don't think I could put another one in. I've maxed it out.
So this is this sail fin. This is probably what, 12 inches, give or take?
Probably about 10.
Wow,
about 10.
so
and
massive.
He's been in here for probably about 10 years. And, they all seem to get along pretty well.
Yeah.
The Achilles has been in there for about 3. The Blue Tang has been in there for about 3 also. He was a rescue from a friend's tank which started to leak.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up going and picking up his tangs and some of his fish. Some of these other ones came with him at the same time with the 2 yellows.
Right.
And that's what kind of pushed me up to this many. I didn't plan on putting that many in, but it was like, rescue. Right.
Any failures when it comes to fish, like anything that you tried and then couldn't keep?
Well, there's always some small fish that you put in there and either another fish beats it up, or just after a while your tank just can't sustain that particular type. Copper banded butterflies are a bit hard. I've had a few in here. They usually last a year, maybe 2 at the max.
Mm-hmm.
And but they do help to control aptasia. I used to have what's the other one that's
Also the butterfly, or
No, not the butterfly, the foulfish.
Yes, yes.
And I couldn't put any zoos in the tank.
Oh, because he would just go after it.
He would nip at all the zoas, and as you can see now, it's full of zoas because I took him out.
How do you catch a fish in this tank?
Luckily, he was pretty slow, and he was pretty greedy. I have feeders that are stationed here.
Okay.
And basically, when it feeds, he came up to feed. I dipped the net, and I was able to catch him. Other than that, it's pretty difficult.
You're done, right?
Next to impossible, because there's just too much coral in there to get a net in there. The only way you're going to do it is by doing that when they come up to feed, and you quickly dip in to catch them.
Wow, and I believe you tried having multiple yellow tangs in the tank. Tell me how that worked out.
There's 2 that are in here right now.
Right.
The reason there's 2 is because they came together as a pair from another tank.
Right.
Same tank, like I said, that leaked.
Yeah.
I got those 2, and that's why they don't seem to fight that much.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So, if you were to add one more tang, what would you, or actually, if you were to add 2 or 3 more fish in this tank, your dream fish, what would you consider?
There's not really too much. There's some smaller fish that are, I'm not the type of person who loves all these very rare, expensive fish.
Yes.
Because I just can't justify the kind of money that they cost for a single fish, right?
Well, at least it's not going to jump out. So
well, that's the good thing
so
now that I've got it sealed up.
Yes.
Originally, it was an open top.
Oh, okay.
Right, so that was part of it too. I would have to take fish out to put more in right now, unless it's really small fish, because I think I'm maxed out right now at the level that the equilibrium, so to speak.
That's hilarious.
Right, for the biological and everything else.
Well, that's amazing. So I don't think I've seen fish that fat in anybody else's tank. Maybe a couple in Toronto area. So no offense, but overall, fish look very healthy. The Achilles, is a testament to the health of this tank.
They are well fed. They are fed 8 times a day.
So what do you feed?
It's a combination of pellets mostly and some flakes. I do have one feeder that's doing dry food for the corals also. Right. But,
which one?
This feeder here does dry food. No, sorry, the one at the back does dry food.
And what kind of dry food?
It's a mix.
Gotcha.
I have a mixture of.
So you want to hit all the all the nutrients, all the macros.
It's not just one.
Gotcha.
I buy a few different ones and I mix them up together, so it hopefully catches everything that's in there, right?
Gotcha.
And I put it close to the MP60 so that it will blow it all around the tank. All right, and
it's a continuous, several times a day, so you don't turn anything off when you do that.
No, it's continuous. It does 4 times a day. I have it doing at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 8 o'clock in the morning.
Gotcha.
So when the lights are out, and it's every 2 hours at that time, and then the feeders come on at about 4 p.m., 4 or 5 p.m. Then every half an hour, there's a little bit of food from each feeder going into the tank.
And it's consumed like no tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
What about frozen food or any, were you spot feeding or
occasionally?
Occasionally.
Very occasionally. It's typically if I put something new in that's a little bit finicky to eat.
Gotcha.
And like I said, I haven't put anything in the tank in over a year. I think the newest fish is the flame hawk.
Yeah, I've noticed it a couple of times.
And his name is Seymour.
Is that the one?
That's the one.
Yeah.
His name is Seymour, apparently. He came from a friend of mine who was retiring from his tank. So
that happens.
I ended up with his fish. And he seems to be my grandson's favorite fish because he just sits there.
Yes. So, by the way, congratulations on the grandson. So you are a grandfather now. So when we met, I've seen this tank go through so many different stages. Probably for the last 6 or 8 years, you've had your ups and downs, as anybody else in the hobby. And right now, I must say that this is probably the best I've ever seen your tank. Everything is nicely grown in. great selection. There's not one single spot that has corals of just one kind or one color. So you've done all of this. Tell us about how you actually manage the colonies of acros and just corals in the tank.
Well, it's a garden, so everything in there eventually will need pruning. Because as you can see, some of the colonies are quite big and they start to encrust into other colonies and stuff like that. So I do that by making frags, and frags help to supplement the cost of my tank.
Yes.
I trade them into stores and stuff like that, and by that way I can get salts and everything else I need to help to maintain this. With COVID right now, I've been able to spend a little bit more time on the tank because you can't go on vacations, you can't do anything much, right? So guess what? And one of the best purchases that I've made was my Trident, which tests the tank for alkalinity 4 times a day, calcium and magnesium twice a day, and it's so easy to look on your phone and see what's going on and make adjustments very quickly before things get bad. There was a point this summer where I was really busy and I just didn't look at it. My alk crashed a bit, and a couple of my SPS started to peel a bit. And, so
that makes sense.
I realized I could look at the history and see what happened, and then be able to fix it.
Yeah, you showed me the chart, like it's fairly rock solid, and I mean on such a big tank, it's very important, and I'm sure you've had your crashes, right? I mean,
and there's mistakes that we all make, and we hopefully learn from them. And I've been doing this for over 30 years. I've continuously had a tank.
Yes.
And I've tried to help other people, not with my wisdom, but my stupid mistakes that I've made, right, to help prevent them from making the same ones.
Yes. Well, didn't we all? So, and for your corals, I noticed that some of them are moving a little bit through the flow. So, can you tell us about how you pegging them and all that stuff?
Basically, I'd say 90% of my corals, the only ones that are solid in there are the ones that have encrusted over the pegs and then down onto the rock. Everything is pegged. Basically, I use 1/4-inch acrylic tubing, and I drill the base rock that I have the coral mounted on, and I put it in there, and I glue it.
Yes.
And in the rocks, I've drilled holes all over my rocks with a 1/4-inch bit also, so I can just put them in and out and move them around.
So the nice thing is that when the colony is either touching something else, or if you don't like the color, or it's maybe too much light, you can just move things around. So
exactly, you can always move stuff around, and things are sometimes the current's too strong in that area, the light's too much or too little, so you can always move it around till you find a sweet spot.
And I noticed that there's a lot less sand than there used to be. What's up with that?
Well, the story is that there's old tank syndrome, right? I don't know how true that is, but I decided to take some of the sand out, and in doing so, you see the muck that comes out with it.
Yes.
And from there, what I've done is whenever I do like a big water change and stuff like that, I take out a little bit more, and I'm down to probably about 1/4 of the sand that I used to have in the tank.
Right.
So 3/4 of it is out. What I've noticed is my colors are a lot better.
Yes.
I don't have to supplement anything for my phosphates anymore because my phosphates are way down. It's harder to keep up with the alkalinity because the corals are growing more.
Yes.
They're happier.
Yes.
Right? And so my calcium reactor and I'm actually having to dose a little bit to even supplement the calcium reactor. I also use Calquaser, and even with that, I'm still struggling to keep it where I want it because everything is just doing so well.
And we'll get to see the calcium reactor Dayne is talking about, because that's a big one. Let's just say it's not in the sump. It's got its own little crevice in your frag room over there. So with the corals, what guides you in your selection of corals? Any ones that you really are interested in? Which ones are your favorite? What's your philosophy on picking the corals and then looking after them?
I always consider it's a garden. It's a wet garden,
Yes.
right? And for me, it's always the look, the shape of how it is. I don't care about the name.
Yeah.
If I like the way it looks and it's reasonably priced, I will buy it, right? Or I'll trade for it or something like that. And from there, you try and select things that gives contrast to the other ones, and the colors look different and all that. And it's just, you don't want to have too much of one thing. You got to have some contrast. So.
Well, even if the green slimer right next to the orange setosa,
exactly,
you can't beat that, right? But it's like regular clownfish, right?
Exactly. Well, that green slimer came back from you.
Yes.
Right? When I had lost mine, I used to have one that used to be about 2 feet across.
Yes.
And for something attacked it, and eventually I lost it, and Dimitri gave me back a piece of it. And that's why I always, my philosophy is I share with friends, because we can always bank it with each other. Right, so if you ever lose something, you can always get something back.
I think it's called the Paletta code or whatever it is. Maybe or the old reefer code. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but we've got like a Canadian version of Sanjay and Mike Paletta.
Yes.
So yes,
I've been doing that for many years.
So, but having said that, yes, a lot of times, I can come to Dayne, and if there's a certain coral. He will give it to me, and then I'll always very happy to repay. And as you know, we go through ups and downs. So this is, it's just part of what makes the hobby a lot more exciting about it.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about your coral husbandry. Like, what are you looking for? What do you think in terms of the nutrients, salinity, phosphates, all of that good stuff?
Phosphates, I try to keep it between 0.08 and 0.5. I don't like
0.0.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Right. I don't like it too much swinging either way. Because it's a mixed reef. I'm fighting between the LPS and the SPS to find a sweet spot that they're both happy at.
Right.
Right. And you go either way, and one's gonna be happy and one's not gonna be, right? Salinity is 1.025 generally, maybe 0.6 in that range. Alkalinity, I try to keep it between 8.5 and 9. And calcium about 400. I prefer around 450 if you can get it there. Right now it's at about 420.
Right.
And that's basically the magnesium. I keep high. I keep it above 1500. And
why is that?
I just find that it's easier for everything else to keep in balance.
Gotcha.
Right. If you let it get too low, other things can go out very quickly. Right.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Well, I think this is, and from this angle, this what you could refer to as a money shot, right? I mean, you've structured it such that here, mind you, this is 40 inches long, 30 inches high. So this looks just like a rather small window, but right into it, it goes down 6 feet into the tank. And the way you've structured it, you can still see, I can see the rainbow loom colony all the way at the back. And just its nice gradual decline, so that if you grid it every single day through your front room, you get to see this particular view, which I never get tired of.
Exactly.
Why don't we take a look at your fish room, which is going to be, I think, even more exciting to some of our equipment, us equipment junkies over here. So thank you, Dayne.
Okay.
All right, we're down in the real frag room over here. So you got the sump, you got the frags, you got the skimmer. We'll go over all of this. So I never get tired of seeing really well planned out rooms. And can you tell us about how did you come about setting all of this up? What did you start with? What did you add afterwards? And just give an overview of what's what.
Basically, when I moved here, I had planned on doing everything in the basement, because in my other house I had my sump and everything in the basement. So I started with over here. This is the sump, which was my original 120-gallon tank, which I converted into a sump.
How old?
This,
mind if I ask?
I would say this tank is probably about 25 years old now.
And the silicone still holds?
Holding, because it's only got that much volume in there, and it's got the braces for the separation of the chambers and the sump.
That's hilarious.
Right. So basically, what happens is the water comes from upstairs. First, it's pumped upstairs with the Abyss 420, and it comes back down. The overflow, I've made an acrylic box up here, which accepts everything, and then from there I have outputs from that box, which feeds my reactors when I use them, my UV and everything. Then this 1.5-inch line comes over to here, down in this sump. This sump then overflows into this, and overflows into filter socks, skimmer, UV and all that in there, right? Then it's then pumped back upstairs.
Right.
The skimmer that I'm using is an old skimmer that I've used for many years. It's an SWC.
Yep.
I think it's a 300. That company's out of business now, but it still works. It works great. So till I either break it, I actually have a spare one.
Just in case, right?
Just in case. Just in case. I actually gave that one to a friend of mine, and he just gave it back to me because he bought a Bubble King. And the Bubble King doesn't skim as well as this one, I don't think.
Wow. So,
right?
Wow.
It's all controlled by Apex. I have old and new. This is the old Apex over here.
Yes.
This is the new Apex. The majority of the tank is controlled by the old one. The new one controls all the dosing and the testing of the Trident.
Yes.
Right, because I had to get a new one to do the Trident, and I wanted the Trident. The Trident, like I said, here's my dosing for the Trident in case the calcium reactor doesn't keep up.
Right.
Now, the calcium reactor I inherited this reactor. It came off of Peter's tank.
So Peter's tank, if you're watching this on YouTube, and you probably are, search in YouTube for what Dayne just said, Peter's tank, and you'll see there's 4 videos.
Right, I think it's the 1,350 gallon tank, or
1,350 gallon tank,
1,450 or something like that. So when his tank came down, I ended up inheriting that, and even after that, I'm buffering with mag here.
Yeah.
There's some mag in the reactor. I've got 2 other chambers here also with more media. I'd say there's probably 10 gallons of actual media.
That's insane. That is insane.
Full of media that's running on this system.
Well, and you're running into this issue because you have so many corals that are just soaking it in.
The SPS is just sucking it up. I also run a calc reactor, which helps with the buffering and to keep the pH up a little bit. I've always run it, and I think it's good to run on the system. The system, there's tons of water flow. I've got an MP40 over there. I've got a couple jars in here also, and another power head there. These tanks are fed by feeders too, because there's some fish in here. Gotcha. So it overflows in there, then it comes in here. So the one fish that's in here gets some from the overflow from that. And it all works. It all works, and I try and have extra of everything. There's calcium reactor medium, stuff for the dosing. I keep a spare pump, right, for in case the Abyss ever breaks. I have my old
Pan
World 70, I believe. It's all plumbed in and ready to go out. All I got to do is just loosen the unions and slap it in. 2 minutes.
The only issue is if you had that pump running, we wouldn't be able to record this video right now. So,
a lot more noise because the Abyss is dead silent.
Right. So, and then this is kind of your workbench, and this is where you do your testing and fragging, and you got the saw. So it's a dream come true for anybody.
The frags there. There's,
oh my goodness.
Frag trays to put them on while I'm doing it and all that, and extra equipment and hoses and everything all laying around.
That's that is everybody who's been in this hobby seriously, like to them this is the dream to have something like this.
Refugium is over there also. That's something that I added this year also. Mm-hmm. So it's probably a 40-gallon refugium, and I've got Chaeto and red. I forget the name of that. Red
macro algae of some sort. So.
Yes. So I've separated it between the two,
Right.
so I can keep them separate.
So I gotta ask, what is? Well, I actually know what that is, but what is the red hose in
The
there?
red hose in here is my heater. So basically, I'm an HVAC contractor, and
That would explain, by the way, all the tinkering and all the
Yes.
braveness of starting all this plumbing and
Yes.
doing custom boxes and everything else.
right. So
yes.
basically, what happens with this is the temperature controller from my Apex controls it. I also have a redundant one that it has to go through also. It then pumps hot water from my tankless hot water heater through the system and back to the hot water heater to heat the tank. And it's controlled by both these controllers, so they both have to be on, so there's a redundancy for safety. And it works great because I hated coming down here and seeing 3 200-watt electric heaters on all the time, and it was
That's
like
energy
on,
drain,
yeah,
right?
it
So-
was like on all the time because you can see the little light in the heater, right? So I said, no, let's try something new, and it's worked great for quite a few years now.
Right, and it's probably more stable
Yeah.
longer term as well. So
Oh yeah. So
That's-
it works good in the wintertime.
that's
for sure.
that's amazing. And what about water changes? How often do you do them? How big are they? What do you look for?
I typically do a water change weekly. All right, sometimes it's stretched to a couple of weeks. It's usually 40 to 50 gallons.
Mm-hmm.
I like to siphon the sumps and
Yes.
the tank and to keep everything clean. So I have a sink right there. Everything can siphon right into the sink.
Right.
My fresh water is on the top, my mixing station on the bottom. So I always have 70 gallons of salt water mixed, ready to go. Right.
Wow.
All I have to do is to plug it in, and it's pumped into the tank. All right. And water changes, I can change 50 gallons in 5 minutes.
And do you notice any changes after you do a water change, or the corals you don't really see anything there?
You know what? I never really notice a lot. I have friends that tell me, oh, they see everything popping up, but maybe because I do it so frequently, and they only do it,
So every
once a month.
2 weeks or once
Right.
a month or
Yeah,
whatever.
so the change isn't quite as much. Maybe that's why.
What about your Trident in terms of alkalinity? How does that react when you do a water change?
It doesn't seem to react a lot, simply because the volume is so large.
Yes.
There's probably 500 gallons total volume
Yeah, so-
throughout the system, right? So when you're doing only 50 gallons, it's not that much.
Right. So
Right,
you
so-
don't even bother, checking the alkalinity on the
Of the salt
of
mix,
the salt mix
honestly,
and that stuff.
I hardly ever do it. I've always used the reef crystals. I've recently switched between H2O and Red Sea. It's simply because it seems that there may have been a bad batch or something out there.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure, but I switched over and everything seems to be fine.
That's phenomenal. Like, I mean, I remember Reef Crystals has these 50-gallon bags, and you specifically would just pick up the whole bag, cut it, throw it into your water mixing system.
It's extremely
So-
convenient, but we haven't been able to get them
No.
as easily recently.
No. So, well, Instant Ocean, make a note so that we in Canada can get some again.
Yeah.
So that would be
sure.
great.
For sure.
Well, Dayne, I want to say huge thanks for inviting us to your home and allowing us to see your both systems. I think of your very complicated modular system. And for anybody who's watching the video, if you have any questions for Dayne, feel free to write them in the comments. And if there is a few other things you want to ask, maybe there'll be a second video where I'll come in with specific questions and we'll go a little bit deep on a particular area. But Dayne, thank you for the huge overview of the system. Everything looks great. Can't wait to see it another 6 months from now. So thank you. So cheers. This is what 30 years of reefing experience looks like. If you have any questions, write them in the comments below.